The heart is the most simple question of all. What is the purpose of life? When you blindly think of it, it's a really easy question to answer. But then you wonder which answer you actually pick. Is it the religion-based answer, to praise God and make good deeds? Or is it the societal answer, to make good money and raise your kids to do the same? Or is it to just go with the flow and see where life takes you, where it's pretty irritating for some of us, since humans have a curious need to know what happens next and how everything happened in the first place. This is how theories began to develop, such as the theory of the Big Bang, which is as explained by NASA, is when the universe was just a single point and it had expanded and stretched to grow as large as it is today, and it's theorized to still be expanding. Now, this theory was theorized by the study of outer space, aka astronomy, and many other studies that I cannot pronounce. But the theory of the Big Bang marks the beginning of life, but it doesn't really tell us the purpose of it. But we've discovered it or theorized it because of our need to know and explore things. We just can't help it. Now, to our society and what they think, I've often heard really sarcastic answers to the question, what is the purpose of life? And it's between the lines of something like, oh, I eat, sleep, move, and repeat. That is a brutally honest answer to my question, but it doesn't really answer it. See, I asked about the purpose of life, why we go through this cycle, what are we trying to achieve? So I thought it was interesting to ask my little sister Nora to see how she's going to view the question. She answered it and she said, the purpose of life is to live with our family, to love each other. And so I really liked her question, not how I'd phrase it, but she's got the spirit. Now, I wanted something deeper from her, since this is the kid that asked me about the contents of water. How do you answer that? I honestly didn't know. And so I needed something deeper. It could be because I'm young and curious and expected more from an 8-year-old, or it could be because I'm human and I'm really curious. I ran out of people to interview since I wrote the speech during quarantine, and so it was either my little sister or the stray cat that came to visit us from time to time. I already know my parents' take on this question. They've raised me to praise God, work hard, and socialize, not judge people for how they express themselves, all that jazz. But then, this again is similar to the cycle that I just mentioned. This is how life should go. It doesn't really describe the purpose of it. Why am I going through this cycle? And so I thought there was more to it. So because of my father's environment, my father's work environment, I had to travel a lot for the past 18 years. And so as a Saudi Arabian, I've traveled to France, Scotland, England, and China. So I've lived in all of these countries that have very different cultures. And so I've been exposed by these cultures and ideas and point of views from all these different people. And this made me a third culture kid, which basically means, in my own words, it means that I basically don't know what to think, but I'm also expected to think a certain way, depending on which culture I'm living at the moment. I'm always told to keep my original mindset, whatever that means, but I think it's a skill. It's a skill to be able to view a situation from many, many different point of views. It's a skill that we all need in order to solve our future conflicts that we're facing right now. Now, a couple of things that I've had enlightening conversations about over the past years while studying abroad is how we should tackle different global issues. And some of these global issues include environmental issues, racial and gender discrimination, poverty, and unfortunately, many other more. Now, I'm fortunate because my school, CISB, we get to tackle and talk about these global issues on a school scale so that one day we can grow up and solve these global issues on a more global scale. See, this is the most important part of living, being able to learn and be aware about how change can affect our world and affect ourselves. See, change can be anything. It could be praising others instead of bringing them down, or changing your lifestyle just a little bit to make it more eco-friendlier. So the reason why I brought up global issues into my talk is because, as I mentioned in the beginning of my talk, where I mentioned about the Big Bang Theory, where us humans have a curious need to know how everything had began, I also think it's very important to save ourselves from the approach to the ending of our world that our own daily actions are causing. That sounds pretty dramatic, I have to admit, but so does these global issues. So, a great way to start is to start spreading awareness about these global issues and how they can permanently affect our world and our future generations' lives. It could be as simple as posting an educational post on Instagram or any other social media. That's a great way to start. Now, what I think is the beauty of life is us, all of us, working together to better ourselves, to better our environment, our economy, our society, and most importantly, to better our world. Now, all these aspects that I've just mentioned, which one may depend on to answer the question, what is the purpose of life? They all just set views of what we're told are the way we should live. So people have a sense of assurance or a clear answer so they don't panic. But some of us, which I think are the bravest, are the ones that just go with the flow of life and see where life takes them. I myself need a sense of assurance from time to time to tell me that I'm going to be okay on my journey. And so I research sometimes about, viewing numerical signs so that they can basically tell me that I'm okay. But this is just a simple part of coping, really. And so my life is pretty basic, I'll have to admit. I'm too anxious to be the one to go with the flow of life, and I'm pretty curious. I like to ask questions. I like to try new things. It could be because I'm young, but that's who I am. And so I believe that there's no set format to answering the question, what's the purpose of? I feel discombobulated just by hearing it, which I think is pretty sad since we've spent all this time living and we have to study the six-worded question that asks us about our lives. But hey, after 10 minutes of talking about what the meaning of life should be, I'll have to admit, I'm only 18 and I barely know what my meaning of life is. But if you have it all figured out, don't hesitate to share. And hey, I'll listen. I won't negotiate, I'll just listen and share. I promise. Thank you guys.